Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalram, and there is a lot for me to talk about when it comes to Outlaw rogues. In particular, everything that I am, waiting for and expecting for when it comes to the next expansion, Battle for Azeroth. Now, Blizzard did say that they're probably not going to change too many things when it comes to Battle for Azeroth. So if you were hoping for some crazy class changes, I doubt we'll get any. I think Legion solidified the idea of spec identity, and if anything, Blizzard wants to retract some of this stuff to more class identity. So, as a class, as a rogue, it doesn't matter whether I'm Subtlety, Assassination, or Outlaw. I bring certain skills, but I bring a rogue buff to my team, and that's what's important. What's not important to my team is which spec I choose to play, because that is damn my own business anyway. And this will make it a lot easier for people that are rogues, whether in PvP or PvE, if done properly, to play properly. Alright, let's talk about Outlaw, and I'm not going to be here for too long, hopefully, talking off your ear, but this spec, while I feel like there's not going to be a lot of changes to rogues in general, it's going to be a lot of talents, maybe, hopefully, honor talent changes, and some baseline changes that just are, I mean, once that we see them, I guess we'll see if they're good or not, but I have a good feeling about it. I have a good gut feeling about the changes we will receive. One of the things that we could talk about Outlaw, first of all, is Roll the Bones. This whole ability is just turn the spec upside down. People don't want to play it. I feel like if any ability is going to be, I guess, changed as a guarantee, I think that Roll the Bones, there's going to be definitely something done by it. And I first want to walk over what Blizzard is trying to do with the spec, which I like, which reinforces the idea that it'll probably change Roll the Bones, because one of those features that you hear a lot about, and some of the other features I'm about to talk about, I'd never really heard about it before, and they still implemented it. It's just such great ideas. I know that they were going to be focusing more on class-based, but they gave Outlaw baseline grapple and hook. Oh, at a minute cooldown, and that's fine with me, because you can still talent for a 30-second cooldown. So if you really want to roll around as a Roll the Bones Outlaw rogue, or really any way you want to build yourself as Outlaw rogue, and have a 30-second grapple and hook, you're more than welcome to. But if you want to combine together grapple and hook and acrobatic strike, so grapple and hook and hit and run, oh, that's going to be so good to be able to mix up your spec and give you a few more options in terms of how you want to approach situations, especially when it comes to dealing with mobility. And with cooldown reduction, the retractable hook and grapple hook would just feel still really good. It might be weird to get used to that 1 minute cooldown, but I think it will still feel really good. At level 75, they changed up this abilities a bit. Prey on the Weak still there, Dirty Trick still beautiful, and then Blinding Powder. Oh, let me read what it does. Blinding Powder reduces the cooldown of blind by 30 seconds and increases its range by 15 yards. Oh, 2 and 1.5 minute blind compared to the rest of the rogues that have a 2-minute blind? Sign me up. Outlaw literally has a leg up over other specs. Now you can actually have the spec deal no damage as long as it still has a Tricks of Trade burst and plunder armor and a ranged stun, and you can actually do some crazy shit with this. I'll be really excited to see some of the things that you can do with it. I like these kind of things that Blizzard did, is to add a little bit more flavor to the specialization and give you some different talents that actually give you a lot more room for, I guess, improvement in how you want to play. I'm still not sure exactly what they want to do with the honor talents. I would love to see what they come up with, or maybe if they drop the idea of honor talents altogether in the future. But to add this for PvP and even PvE in some of the Mythic Plus situations where there's a lot of CC going out or much necessary CC that you need to put out, oh, is that going to feel good? Now, at level 100, you get your options for Roll the Bones, and this is what I really want to talk about. Slice and Dice versus Roll the Bones. But now it's a question of Slice and Dice versus Roll the Bones. Slice and Dice versus Mark for Death. What about Loaded Dice? Loaded Dice is a trait for your artifact weapon, and unless you play Outlaw, you have no idea what the hell this is. Upon activating Adrenaline Rush, causes your next Roll the Bones to grant at least 2 matches. So once you pop Adrenaline Rush and you generate common points and you Roll the Bones, you will definitely guarantee have 2 or more matches for buffs. Now this is going to be really hard to make a choice here, because this tells us that Blizzard still wants Roll the Bones to stay. This RNG ability that puts so many people off, the ability that I actually don't have too much of a problem with for reasons, but so many people have an issue with it, it's hard to overlook it. I think RNG and Roll the Bones is fine, especially when the spec does perfectly fine, and what Roll the Bones does is forces you to be on your toes when it comes to changing your rotation even ever so slightly and being able to take advantage of buffs once you're given them. I guess statistically, with your highs and low rolls, you should amount to an average decent DPS. And by decent, I mean like, you know, you can be competitive with against other specs of Rogue, for example. Even in the current patch tier of TOS, which is so single target heavy, which usually isn't a strong suit for Outlaw, but even I can hold my own at, I don't know, so if I get really good procs, and if I use them about 1.7 mil DPS or so. It depends on a fight, of course. I mean, I feel like the spec is fine with Roll the Bones. It's an RNG ability, and it averages out in the long run, but the problem with it is, and I feel like maybe some bad luck production would be nice, but then I would have to redo the whole ability, is just the fact that you might get bad buffs back to back. Like some people have reported they've gotten Grand Melee like 10 rolls in a row. 10 rolls in a row. Like some bad buffs can happen. And there have been some moments where I, in an arena, got 3 6 buff when it was still a 6 buff. 3 times in a row. Back to back to back. And I still had a hard time killing the mage because my heal would just not dispel anything ever. Oh, it pissed me off, but it was just such a luck of the draw to get 6 buffs. I think the biggest disparity about the buff mechanic. First of all, the fact that they want to use it is going to be weird. They still continue with it. The best way, I think, maybe to fix it might be to prune it. Because let's say, alright, maybe let's keep the buff as it is. Let's buff the basic damage of your Outlaw Rogue. So then let's say whatever buff you have, and nerf a lot of these buffs to where you just don't get as many, I guess, benefits out of. So what if you get Grand Melee for auto attack speed? You know, you just Saber Slash and Run Through still do damage, but that makes it now that broadsides makes your Saber Slash and Run Throughs happen a lot more often, and then it means actually more damage. So then you would have to nerf it, but how can you nerf it from generating 1 extra common point? A half a common point? What about also True Bearing? If you buff all your basic abilities, having True Bearing for your stuns and your adrenaline rushes makes everything stronger. And then that energy regen actually helps out because that feeds to your Restless Blades mechanic, which is another RNG cooldown reduction mechanic. I mean, you see in the Nightmare, honestly, I think they should cut it. This ability needs to be simplified. A lot of people look at it and say, wow, Roll the Bones, RNG, 6 buffs, maybe too much. I feel like if they were to simplify it, and I'm the last person to talk about prune, maybe take down Roll the Bones to just 3 buffs. 3 buffs that don't really affect your damage too much, but rather affect your playstyle. Or maybe they affect your damage, but not as big as, let's say, Broadsides affects your damage. Like a % crit, or energy regeneration, or a % chance, or a higher side of % chance to get a Saber Slash. Those 3 buffs wouldn't change your playstyle too much. And loaded dice, when you have 2 of them, would be an obvious damage increase. Having any of those buffs and Mark for Death would be a damage increase in its own way, especially if you can refresh Mark for Death, like, you know, kill a target with Mark for Death, then Mark for Death the other guy, run through, they die, Mark for Death again. Or even simply going with Slice and Dice, which will be just overall a stronger option because it'll be more consistent, where you don't really have the burst phases with Adrenaline Rush 2 buff mechanic or the Roll the Bones Mark for Death combo. I feel like it might make it a lot easier on the spec. I'm the last person to talk about, you know, nerfing things, just taking things out of the game. I want more abilities in the game. But I just don't know how you can have that with Roll the Bones when you have 6 different buffs that you're trying to balance with a spec. You know, it's like having a bunch of specs already in the game. You have so many specializations in the game, to try to balance them all for PvP is impossible. So to lower down the amount of buffs you get for Roll the Bones might actually be the better option. But what do you guys think? What would you change, man? Or maybe, in your opinion, you think that you should just replace Roll the Bones with Slice and Dice. It just makes the baseline Slice and Dice. What do you think? Comment section. It's all yours. I want to hear you guys' opinions. But this is what I think is going to happen to Outlaw. I think that we had great changes so far to the talents. Very, very excited to see what they do next. And I know they're not going to do a lot, but the things they are going to do is going to be so good. And then I definitely think that they're going to make changes to Roll the Bones in the future. Comment below what your thoughts are. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see all of you in the next one.